You obviously love this stuff. Have you been a pilot yourself?
No, I'm really an enthusiast. I do a bit of gliding, but no, when I got into this about 7 years ago, it was either go and get my licence or do this, because they're both quite expensive.
I was about there, wasn't I, Alan? I was that close to going and looking at getting my licence, and it's just so expensive.
And I knew that after a year or two I'd stop doing it. The hassle to get prepared, go out to the airport, deal with the weather, pay the fees every time. So in the end I built one of these, and it kind of, and although it cost a lot, you know, we're going to spend $2,000 in fuel today. You know, I'm not paying. I'm not paying for that. And it actually means we can literally fly anywhere in the world. So I've got a guy who comes in every Saturday, and we just fly all over the world. He's a retired military pilot, and he just likes to stay fresh. And he'll email me the week and say, we're going to fly from blah to blah, and you pull out the charts, and you actually figure out. So you kind of really focus on the whole experience, rather than just flying circuits. And there's some really cool places in the world you actually see in the sim. Just interesting terrain and approaches or difficult approaches. It's good fun. Boom, 40%.
When it gets to you, press
so when it's stable like that, you press toga, you feel the throttles move, and just keeping your eyes towards the end of the runway. Your co-pilot's done a rubbish job, come on. Keep going, it's all fine. This is what happens when you don't run checklists. Okay, so just keeping us in the middle of the runway with your rudder pedals. I'll call rotate when we're up to speed. Should be 3 to 4 seconds, just a slow pull on the column. Tiny bit of left foot just to straighten up. That's it.
Left foot?
Left foot forward just to take your left foot
forward. Ah, there you go. So not used to the pedals.
Rotate. So it's 3 to 4 seconds. Just keep pulling till you see the nose just break ground, right about there, and then hold the column in that position. And as we rotate, you're then looking to transfer past 10 degrees, so keep pulling, and on about 12.5, settle the pitch box there. Positive rate gear up. And if things are set up properly, once we leave the ground, you should be able to let this go all the way back to centre, and it should be in a stable climb at about 15 degrees pitch, so 10, 15, at about 3 to 3,500 feet a minute. I've got it trimmed, and this is how the airlines do it, to want to naturally climb away from the ground. Alright, at that point let's set a speed, so dial this up to about 200 knots. And hit the black speed button underneath. So although this is active, hit speed, and then we're actually getting our speed being managed. Mount Wellington off of the distance, so start a left turn.
Yes, I used this heaps when I was playing it.
Yeah, well this is how most people fly. They don't do a lot of hand flying at home, they tend to use the automation, or this. You can program the whole flight in here and not even use this. Okay, now as you turn, the nose will want to come down on you a bit. It's normal for it to lose lift, so just pull back to keep it at about 10 degrees of pitch. Flaps can go up. And actually bring that speed up about 220 while we're in the turn. We'll just get where we can fly with no flaps. Perfect. Altitude on the right, so 3,400. As we approach 4,000, let the pitch drop to about 5 degrees, and that should have us flying pretty much level. In due course, level the wings and aim for the mountain. Okay, so that pitch is just dropping below 5, so just pull back enough pressure to keep it there. And this is where I say, find a pitch that gives you a nice flat line there, and then just try and keep flying that pitch. And hit your little terrain button there, TERR. That'll put a terrain map on the screen. As we approach the mountain, it'll become a bit more obvious. If we're too low, it'll go all red on you. And that's already perfect. That pitch is giving you a pretty flat line. And this is then where you'd use the trim, that if you're finding you're having to hold the column back to maintain that pitch, you can just spin the wheel backwards, that's nose up trim. Just as you give it a bit of trim, see what it does to your black box, and you should just be able to release out tiny bits of pressure as you trim it. And you can use the trim in the whole flight, take off, cruise, approach, to give you the sort of flight attitude that you want. You'll probably find it's going to take a while to catch up. It'll end up putting you into a climb. You've almost probably gone too far, but it's a bit of a sensitive system.
Yeah, it takes a while to react.
Yes, it does. It's moving the rear wing, and then that airflow has to go through the airframe. So you're at 3980. The mountain's about 41, so we're probably going to have to climb about 100 feet. We won't climb today. We'll just as we get close, we'll just bank left and just come right round in front of it.
Yep.
Southern outlet, winding down there, that's the dual carriageway down
Yeah,
to
the
Kingston.
graphics are pretty cool.
Yep. They're certainly, for what's possible, they're not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still just descending. So before you trim, just fix it with the column. Just pull the nose up a little bit, and then put in a depth of trim. And then let's break away to start going left, just about a 10-degree bank. Should get us nicely staying clear of that. So that'll do. Once we're in the bank, centre the wheel. Fern tree, you should see the roads that head down through the back there. And that's Kingston Beach down that one.
Yeah.
There, we're very close.
Yeah.
And we're almost just going to fly out over Kingston. Yeah, we wouldn't get away with this in the real world.
No, I think you'd get in trouble.
We'd be, that licence we were both thinking of going for would probably be getting handed in. But nonetheless, it's quite cool to get that close to them. So Kingston Beach, you should see like Browns River at one end.
Yep.
And I'll give you a heading to fly. This is your main navigation display here.
Yep.
That pink line that's coming up,
Yep.
that's basically the heading we want to fly out towards the airport, which should almost take us over Kingston.
So we do a lot of sailing. So we leave our boat in Limousin, we go down through the channel and
You probably know my brother.
love it.
What are they? What's his called? Not Amity, that's my dad's old boat. He's got a Jeanneau yacht they bought a few years ago, and they do a lot of sailing. I think it might be out of not Lindisfarne. What's the Royal?
Yeah.
It's either out of Bellary or Lindisfarne.
Yeah.
I don't follow it, but it's And in fact, my other brother-in-law used to run a lot of Sydney Hobart. He had a boat called Interim.
Okay.
Did up until maybe 10 years ago, had probably done 6 or 7 Sydney Hobarts. Alright, beautiful. So at that point, because you're doing quite well, as soon as you've got the wings level there, one hand on the throttles, press the little button on the edge, that'll shut down the auto throttle system. Yep. So that's taking control of the thrust manually.
Yep.
You're sitting here pretty much perfectly trimmed. Engine thrust is about 50%. So if you just bring that thrust up to about 70, so hands on, watch the gauges, and basically take your hands off the control column altogether. Yep, keep going up to 70. And that extra thrust pretty much has to put you into climb. Alright, as soon as we let that, it takes a little while to translate,
Yep.
but the nose is going to come up, the pitch is going to come up. It'll probably get up to anywhere from 7.5 to 10 degrees. And you can literally fly on this if you start getting well balanced. Bring one of them back. So bring the left-hand engine back a bit to maybe about 40%. And that should be enough to get us into a slow yaw-induced turn, just asymmetric thrust. And you'll actually see, it's quite a slow transition, but we'll start to turn left.
I've never used them like that before.
No, it's just interesting that you can, and even with trim, you can end up using it instead of trim. You can just advance the thrust a tiny bit. If the nose was just dropping, rather than trimming it out, just put in a bit of extra power, stuff like that.
Yep.
So yeah, that's actually getting into quite a decent turn. So split the throttles the other way, reverse them, left up, right back. And you should pretty much be able to get the wings coming back towards level. And just what I've got here, that's 7 Mile Beach back behind us in the distance there. That's where we're going to be heading shortly.
Yep.
I'm going to put it on your navigation display right here. That's the runway extended centre line.
Oh,
so
cool.
we're this triangle here, and we're at the nose. We're going to head down this way, head across,
Come back
and
on.
head in. Yep.
There's Slaven Island down there, darling.
Yes.
As in Tabitha hates flying. Hates. But I suggested to her that doing something like this would help.
I was a bad flyer as well. I was interested in flying, but I wasn't a good flyer. And exactly things like that thrust reduction you're talking about, when they take off and the nose drops and the engines spool back, this really can make a huge difference. I had a young girl who got selected for her first representative team in soccer, and she was too scared to get on the plane. And her mum brought her in, and I said, listen, we're not rated to give you any psychological advice here, but bring her in one Saturday and we'll spend an hour with her just going through it. And they came in 3 weeks later, brought chocolates in, and she got on the plane and stuff, and it was really, really lovely. And she was too scared to walk in that door. She was absolutely petrified.
In the sim?
Yep. It took her about 10 minutes to get in the door, and then I showed her how I could pause it. I said, listen, at any time when you start to feel panic, we'll just hit pause, it's just a game. But she got on the plane 3 weeks later, she was absolutely petrified. It really is quite cool. And it was some of those things, those noises, and the sort of...
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, a lot of them is the pilot doing things.
And we know why, when you know why. But
Yeah.
All right, let's start a left turn. I'll give you a new heading, 030. This is a base leg.
Yep.
Just watch your pitch
I've
drop.
dropped back that to 40% too. Is that right?
Let's just turn it back on now. That was just for tooling around. So turn on the auto
yeah.
throttle. As soon as you turn that switch on and go hold it up to the locks, go back into speed mode. And in fact, as we're sort of getting in for an approach, just bring it back to about 190 on the speed. And I'll put the first notch of flaps out. Beautiful. That's a great pitch in the turn too. This is where the map's pretty helpful. That centre line is 10 miles away, so 510, and we're going to actually turn to final when we're about 3 miles from the centre line. So we're going to, rings level, fly straight ahead for about 7 miles. You got good check in there with the beach.
That was some of the things that were, on those tests on that thing, was rolling out within 5 degrees of pitch and all those sorts of things. It really taught you
But yeah, I mean, I'm not even watching yours really, because it's very hard to fly this pitch normally. People make an absolute mess of it. I'm not even bothering telling you, because you're actually just getting it nice right from the get-go.
Cool.
Dial up a left there to 300. That's our inbound course for runway 30 in Hobart.
These are the things that I found difficult to learn through a computer telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Just these things.
Yeah, there's so many different pieces. Actually, we're a bit low on pitch now. Just bring it back up towards 5 degrees. There's like different screens here. This is one of the approach screens. So when that bar is centered in there, that means you're tracking towards the runway.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of different systems depending on what sort of mode you're up to. Now, the trick will be, we're still about 18 kilometres out from the airport, so you won't get a good visual on it until we probably turn the corner.
Yep.
But you might sometimes just be able to sneak and see where it is before we turn in.
I can I know where it is.
Yeah, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
If you turn this one to the left, you'll zoom in from 10 to 5, well actually to 10. That'll give you a slightly better indication of when that centre line gets to about 2.5 miles from us.
And that's where we want to turn.
And that's when we want to start the turn, yeah. If we do it at about 2.5 miles, it's only about a 10-degree bank. It's a nice, smooth transition onto the runway. Yep. If you wait a bit later, you have to turn a bit harder.
The professional pilot was off on his normal track. Would he adjust that, or would he just keep going? No, he'd fix it.
He would
have got off at the start with.
That was my first comment. But no, if you were flying visually at this point, you wouldn't fix that. No, I mean, you're talking about a very small cross-track area here. We're within, our actual navigation performance here is 0.08. We're within a cross-track of absolutely naff, or it doesn't even show up as off track. Yep. You're talking about being 50 feet away. Okay, there it comes. You just come into 2.5 miles, so set about a 10-degree bank, so the first white line at the top there.
Yep.
And then you get this turn indicator, this curved white line, so you're actually sort of coordinating that to join the inbound course. And we're just climbing a bit, so we can actually start descending now. We want the pitch down at 2.5 degrees, so the first white line. And bring the speed back to 170 for me. Okay, got a good visual on the runway there now, the lights and the thin grey strip. So you're pretty much from here, don't worry too much about what you see, just look out the window and get that runway back where that white dotted line was for takeoff.
What's our descending speed?
Our landing speed is going to be 146 knots with flaps at 30. I'm going to grab the gear down, actually now it's 5.
It's under 180 knots is gear, is it? Is that
gear,
right?
the limit on gear is
See that noise
270. 270 usually.
270 is it? Okay.
Actually for retract it's 235. Yep. Okay, now we're a touch high. Bring the speed back down to 155 now. That's the flaps 15 speed. We're 8 miles out, so we're about 500 feet high, so our descent rate would normally be about 800 feet a minute, so keep it at about 12, just lift the nose a bit,
Yep.
and then as we get back on profile, we'll be pulling the nose up until we're descending at about 800 feet a minute.
I guess when you were flying an actual plane, you'd feel the weight of the plane too, wouldn't you?
Yeah, there's a few things going on that would still make it a little bit easier. Although not the way you're thinking about necessarily in the control column, because that's actually, they have simulators in there too. It's not connected.
Yep.
It's a pretend force they put on it. Yep. Okay, we're about to come on profile. That's perfect actually. So that pitch you're flying is giving you about 800 feet a minute.
Yep.
That's great. The runway lights should be a certain height up your window. Try and adjust the column to keep them about that height all the way till we hit the ground.
Two red and two white,
no, this is different here. This is a Varsi. They actually go out the back if you're high, and they come out the front if you're low. We just have one go out the back then.
Yeah, the red one?
No, actually they're all white. but just drop the nose a tiny bit. Bring your pitch just below 0 degrees on the horizon. Auto brake set. And speed brake is armed. That's good. And so we're descending a little bit steeper than we normally would, and then we'll pick it back up again just as we get a bit closer. What you should see is they look like a blur at the moment, but there's actually the main light and one out the back. As we get back on profile, the one out the back should go out to tell you that you're back on your correct profile path.
And that's the line or the height or both?
The light. It's actually...
I mean that profile, is that the
height.
line or the
no,
height?
Just height. Yeah. No, on this approach, there's no profile help. You've just got to keep the runway in front of you. Actually, I can tell you just a tiny bit to the right of the centre line. I'm using a back course of the ILS from the other end, but it's a bit of a cheat. Good. We're still a tiny bit high, so make sure you don't pull the nose up at all. We still want to hit right where that dark patch of runway is.
Yep.
Your tendency will be wanting to slightly flare. Just don't fall for that at the moment.
You flare these when you land them though, don't you?
Not really.
No?
We'll talk. Don't flare today.
Yep.
On this one, I'll tell you about it once we're on the ground.
Yep.
What you can do is put your feet back on the rudder pedals, just ready for steering once we've touched down.
Yep.
See those lights are out the back? That's
Yep.
what tells you you're high. If we were low, they'd be coming out the front.
Okay.
Keep descending. We've got plenty of time here. I've got auto brakes to 3, so we'll stop easily. Just don't pull back. No, you're pulling back. You don't need to, but you're doing it naturally. Everybody knows that's it. Now you can just lift the nose just a tiny bit, let the gear hit. Then the nose wheel goes down. You're steering with your feet, and you just pull on these 2 reverses halfway.
Which ones?
These 2 here. Just lift them up halfway. Perfect. And even with that slightly long landing, with auto brakes 3, we'll land. We'll stop it, no problem. Oh, come on, that was awesome. All right, close the reverses. And those landing distances are very accurate. They're really well modelled in this. If we were to turn around and take off with, say, 15-knot tailwind, we would really struggle to get airborne because that wouldn't work in the real world.
Yep.
It's that sensitive.
Okay.
Anytime they start talking about auto brake 3 or max, you're getting some pretty strong braking that's coming on to slow you down.
Yep.
So a couple of things. One is the pressure on the column in the real aircraft, it doesn't change a lot in terms of, it feels quite light.
Okay.
Even though you've got a 60-ton aircraft, because they have what they call a field computer. I know this because we're building a set at home at the moment that we've just dropped about 50k on, which are simulating the Boeing system. And what does happen is as you increase airspeed, the column gets heavier. So if you're busting along at 300 knots and you wanted to start to climb, to pull the nose up actually takes quite a lot of muscle.
Yep.
And I've got it set in the garage at the moment, and I'm flying on like a little monitor, but with these controls on the floor, and at that sort of speed, you really have to work quite hard. Yep. Whereas at approach speed, they're meant to be really very light.
Yep.
The other thing that's a little bit not right in this, which is obviously right in the Boeing and better in the ones we're doing, is they're lighter on the aileron, actually, and that doesn't change with speed. The amount of effort you need to turn this, it really is, you can do it just with one finger very easily.
Yep.
But the feel is a little bit, it's quite artificial because they use their fly-by-wire system. They decide how much feel you get. If they decide they wanted to make the column heavier, they just like turn up the computer.
Turn it up,
and it's not, unless you actually go into a manual reversion system where you've lost all your hydraulics and then you are physically trying to lift the wings up, it's an artificial force. All right, so what do you reckon, Queenstown?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Flying some mountains.
Yeah, now the only question is, do we go into Queenstown from somewhere or do we just do a circuit around there? Let's just do a circuit around there. The nearest one's about Dunedin and it's probably about 80 miles to get across there.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll just take off out of the valley and then come back down. So you've flown into there in a full size? Have you been in there
a few times.
with Jetstar or who's
Virgin usually.
I don't suppose they would have done the circle procedure when they came in. Did they pretty much go straight into land?
I've come in from both directions before,
Yeah.
but I don't know that we've been put in a holding pattern before.
Yeah, okay. That's because their planes are a little bit too smart now. It's only fairly recent. The way it used to work is it doesn't matter which end you came in from, they had to do a descending circuit around the aerodrome.
No, we didn't do that.
And nowadays they've got these fancy RMP systems where they can actually kind of fly slightly curved approaches, and so they can come straight in.
Yeah.
But we actually like to do it the way they do it. Well, this is still on the chart, so this is how you would fly it if you don't have these more advanced systems on board. And there's lots of, like the older Boeings that haven't been upgraded, don't have the system you need to fly that straight in approach in Queenstown.
Yeah.
So what they have to do is descend to a certain height, and then do a descending lap
Circle
visually.
inside of 2 mountains.
Yeah, and there's two at each end. There's Deer Park at one end, where they do a lap around Deer Park, which is just here.
Yep.
So it's this sort of flat section to the right. And at the other end, which is the one we're going to do, this hill right here is called, I always want to call it Tolman's Hill, but it's not. It's something like that. The actual VOR, the radio dish that you identify for this airport is up on top of the hill there.
Yep.
And what happens is they come down this valley down here.
Yep, I
And
remember that.
they descend, and nowadays they can actually descend lower and come straight down and land. But the way it always used to work is they have to level off at 4,200 feet.
And go right round this.
And no, they just do a lap around the back of this hill, around here.
Oh, coming
So-
that way.
Yep, so they come down here, they level off at 4,200 feet, and then they fly over the top of this hill, and then they do a right-hand turn,
Yep.
staying well inside this hill,
In between, yeah.
and then they come round, and there's a river up here, and as they're descending visually, you follow the river and come and land. So the trick is, because you're too high when you're coming down normally, you have to, in this circuit, is when you lose your altitude, and then you get to do your landing. And that's what we'll try and do, because that's how they do it in the real
it's a
world.
trickier
And
way to do
it adds to a bit of it, yeah. Unpause that, flaps go back to 5, stabiliser trim goes back. Now it's worth noting here we're already 1,100 feet off the ground. So we're actually, when I said we're coming in at 4,200, we're actually only 3,000 above the field.
Yep.
Auto throttle back on, so we're going to climb, I don't know, up to 5. We're just going to basically, once you get airborne, just visually sort of turn right, follow the valley out a bit, just stay clear of any hills, and we'll get up as high as we need to turn around and come back in. Okay, flaps, blah, blah. Alright, so bring the throttles up to 40%. And then when you're ready, hit the toga button. Takeoff is actually once. This is Queenstown.
Yeah, so it's weird, like when I first put on the pedals I thought it was opposite foot.
It's funny, and everybody thinks that. I'm not sure why. It seems obvious to me, but then it's just because I've done it for a while.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what
here
speed do you
go.
want before
We
we
want,
nose it?
rotating is at 131, so here we go. V1 rotate. Good, and then just keep pulling past 10 degrees up to about 15. Positive rate. Gear goes up. Oh, that's nice, 10. Next white line will be 12.5 degrees. Let's set it on that.
Sorry, what was that?
So the black box, so the next
Yep.
white line is the
You want it
12.5
up, you
degree.
want it up a bit more?
Yeah.
Yep.
So normally climbing greater than 10 degrees. And then once we get clear of the ground, that's when they'll drop it down a bit. So speed mode. Right. Now we're over 1,000 feet above the ground. So drop the pitch to 10 so you can actually see a bit more out the front window. And this is what they call acceleration. And this is what you feel. It's one of the things that make you nervous is that when they take off, they climb at an angle like that. And when they get 1,000 feet above the ground, they actually drop the nose. And that's when the reason they do it is so they can go faster. It's like riding a bike uphill. But when you're sitting there at 1,000 feet, they not only drop the nose, but a lot of the time they back off the engines.
Power,
So
yeah.
you get two things happening. This feeling of the engines starting to quit on you and the nose coming down, and you go like this.
Jetstar's planes seem to be more pronounced in the way they do it. They seem real.
Well, what I can tell you
Sharper.
now is Virgin now don't cut back power, they actually increase it. That's a change they made in the last few years. They used to reduce the power,
Yeah.
they actually now increase the power at that 1,000 feet mark.
Right.
So it's a totally different process. But the reason they drop the nose, the reason you go faster is even if you reduce the engine power, you think about riding a bike uphill, the steeper the hill, the slower you go. So they reduce the power, but because you drop the nose more than the amount of power you've dropped, you still go faster. Yeah, and that's all they want to do is speed up and fly to Melbourne or Sydney. Take us up a bit, take us up another couple of thousand feet. So take us up to 6,000 feet, so pitching for 10 degrees. After takeoff, check clears, flaps to 1, and packs auto, good. And then as soon as we get up to about 6, we'll actually drift over to the left, and then we'll do a turn to the right to head back. Load Queenstown into the computer, put the arrival back onto runway 23 there.
Is this helping you do too, darling?
You know what does help is when I've done it with people is you start to just show them just how many warnings they've got, how many controls they've got, and above all else, you've got to remember that they see out the front window. So one of the problems when you're flying is you're nervous that they're not going to stop on the runway because they're going to land long, but you've got to think about it really logically, which is these two guys who do it for a living are looking out the front window where you can't see. If they're landing long, they know they won't put the plane down. They'll abort. They'll go around. Just simple stuff like that. And even all of these screens, like if these monitors die, I can move all of these displays around. We've got backup systems. I can shut down one of these engines entirely and we'll still fly quite happily. I can shut down both of them and we'll still glide for 20 minutes. I could kill both engines. We wouldn't actually at this altitude, but we would if we were flying to Melbourne or Sydney. It'll take us 20 minutes to get down with no engines at all. That kind of stuff. Okay, that's good. 6,000. So hang a right-hand turn. We want about a 30-degree bank in this turn. So you'll need to pull a bit of back pressure on the column or that pitch will drop on you. That's 10-degree bank. You know where I'm looking for the bank angle?
Yeah.
Yep, 20.
That's quite a sharp one.
Yeah, still within limits though. 30, centre the wheel. That's it, and it'll lock it in. 30 is still commercial bank angle. And we'll just keep coming around. That's the sort of extended centre line back to the airport, so we'll kind of keep turning until we can
180 almost.
go. Yeah, well, actually more than a 180, about a 210. Just watch that climb. Yep, so pitch somewhere between 5 and 7.5 degrees. It should be would normally hold your altitude in a turn. I can see the river. I don't know if you've got it here.
Yep.
That's basically the path back down. And that little hill down the far end, that's the one we do the lap around.
Yep.
You can see the one I mean? Right there.
Yep.
That's the one we're going to actually fly around to do our descending circuit. So right now you can descend to 4,200 feet. So pitch down anywhere near 0 degrees on the horizon. And visually obviously stay clear of these hills. Just head down the valley. Bring the speed back to about 165 initially. And from here you get quite a good view of that big flat area where you do the descending turn.
Yeah.
So we aim right for the top of the hill and we fly over that at the 4,200 and then we do the descending right hand turn. Running a bit fast, so you know you talk about an overspeed.
Yep.
197. If our speed gets up into the red bricks, that'll start an overspeed, even though the engines are at idle. So I'll get the gear down. That'll help put a bit of drag down. And you can see as soon as the gear goes down, 194, 193, it starts to bring the speed down pretty quick. Maybe just bring that nose back up to exactly 0 degrees. That'll help as well. Flaps to 15. This is why we'd be too high normally. The guys that come in Jetstar with their fancy computers now, they can be about 1,000 feet lower than we are and still stay clear of this terrain.
Yep.
But we'll actually see the runway around the corner a bit in a minute.
You know, you can just about see people skiing down the hill.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're close. Okay, 4,600, so we're getting ready. As we approach 4,200,
Level off.
pitch up, yep, about 5 degrees of pitch and level off. There's the runway going to be just down there. Start to kind of see how much manoeuvring room you've got here, just on this plateau to do the turn. When you come around the back of this hill, you're looking for the river, and then it's going to be a right-hand turn to follow the river down. Okay, sorry, we've gone a bit low, so nose up, just hold us at 5 degrees. It doesn't matter that we're a few hundred feet low, we're still visual. Okay, flaps to 30, bring the speed back to 138 knots. We're going to do a flaps 40 landing this time.
138.
Perfect, checked. Now you get a decent view of where the runway is. Yep. So it's kind of nicely tucked around the corner as well. We just wait till we've cleared the hill, and then it's a 30-degree bank to the right initially, or about a 25-degree bank will do. Noting that you need to complete the turn without running wide enough to get into trouble over here.
Yep.
Just keep that nose up, hold us at this altitude. Use a bit of trim. It feels like if you let the column go, it's wanting to go down.
Yeah.
Other way, that's trimming the nose down. A bit more. That's probably pretty good. Right, runway's getting clearer. keep pulling that nose up. Let's get ourselves actually level at this altitude. Good. So we're actually about 1,000 feet lower than they would be starting this turn. So in our circuit, we don't need to lose much altitude. We're pretty much going to almost hold at this altitude for the bulk of the turn.
Yep.
So start turning right. Keep the pitch above 5 degrees or above the second white line. 10-degree bank.
30, 25.
25 should do. Keep pulling the nose up just a touch. 20. Perfect. Centre the wheel. Then just monitor that pitch. And we just keep this bank coming until you can see that hill out my window.
Yep.
And then visually fly around the back of it. Now every now and again it falls out of the bank, so you just give it an extra tweak and then centre the wheel again. And you are climbing, so don't climb, just let the nose come forward a touch. For God's sake, don't crash. It was Tabitha, wasn't it?
Tabitha, yeah.
You'll have convinced her that this is dangerous.
No, I'm pretty sure she won't be letting me fly a plane. She's in.
Okay, now we've actually run a little bit wide, which is fine, but that's the hill there we're meant to go around the back of.
Oh, yeah.
So as you come across through here, we're going to sort of descend a little bit, come around behind the back of these and then follow the river. Oh shit, no it's not. That makes more sense. Keep going. It's back behind me. I knew we were too far in. Keep turning to the right a bit more, increase that bank. Hold the nose up a touch. You'll see it hopefully due course out my window. It's back behind us there.
Oh, yeah.
It's much bigger than the one I was thinking of. And that's the one. Just cruise around the back of it, line up with the river until you spot the runway. Okay, auto brake's going to 3 and the speed brake gets armed. Alright, I've got the runway down there. Now this one is a pappy like you were thinking of, red and white. So once you get set on your approach, you want 2 white and 2 red on both sets of lights.
Yep.
At the moment we've got all white, so you can just let the nose come down a bit. We'll start descending. You can see where I'm looking right here.
Yep. Follow the river.
Yeah, just from here, just manoeuvre visually to get yourself, so head towards the hills, then turn right, just get yourself in front of the runway. That's what they would be doing. There's no magic trick here. But you see how close, when they do this circuit, you really do come in around the back of this one. You get quite close to it.
Not sure I've seen them do that.
No, well, no, but there are plenty of airlines that do, just not the ones you'd fly in on commercially nowadays.
Yeah.
If you go back 10 years, that's what they all did. Okay, now one of those lights is going to go red in a second because we're descending at 1,400 feet. As soon as one goes red, just start to lift the nose a little bit. Good, that's one. That's now about 1,000 feet a minute. Perfect, hold there. And just like before, you're going to be aiming to touch down right next to the lights. Remind me to talk about the flare when we land. 1,000 was checked. Right, 4 whites, a little high, so just push forward. The lights will move up the window a little bit. Good.
No? No, concentrate.
Oh, it's the computer. Okay, now 1 red's a little bit nose up. That's it. Perfect. Now, let's lift the work rate a little bit. 1 hand on the throttles. As you're flying the approach, you have your thumb resting on that button on the edge.
Yep.
At about 100 feet, you're going to press the button, and at about 50 feet, you're going to fully close the throttles.
So 50 feet off the ground.
About 100, you're going to turn off the system with the button.
Yep.
Actually, you can turn off the system now. Keep descending. Make sure you can still see the dark patch.
Yep.
Now close the throttles altogether, and we just pitch up a tiny bit just to slow our descent. Let the main gear hit, and then let the front gear come down. Pull on both reverses halfway, and we roll to a stop. Just steer with your feet, which you don't need to. You're right in the middle. It's as good a landing as I've seen all month. Okay, we're coming through 60 knots, so you close the reverses. Brakes, which will turn off the braking system, and then just so you've seen it, the turn is on the tiller, so the black handle on the wall over on the main side wall of the cockpit. No.
Where am I? Sorry?
Yeah,
There, yep.
yeah, that's it. Just use that like a steering wheel. It's very sensitive, so you just drag it to the left, and that's how they do the tight manoeuvring
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the rudder pedals move the nose wheel, but only up to 7 degrees. So it's only designed for use on the runway.
Yep.
Whereas all the tight manoeuvring you'll see them do around airports is done on the tiller.
Right.
And that will move it up to a full 87 degrees, so almost fully 90 degrees.
Didn't know that.
All right. You coping? We can go again? You right?
Yep.
Not feeling weird? Or
No. Feel good.
Okay, I want to do one and just turn on the flight director for you. You're as bad as the guy I had yesterday, because I kept lifting the ante. And it's actually unusual to get people that are really good at this. Flight simmers are normally quite good, people that have done it before at home, and real aircraft, people who've flown real world, are normally quite good, but they can actually, almost sometimes it makes it harder for them, because the way the real aircraft responds to you compared to the sim can actually almost trick them a little bit.
Yep.
But we'll lift the ante a little bit again. I'm going to turn on the flight director for this one. And we're going to go to a place in Greece, which is a little bit more difficult to land on than Queenstown.
More difficult than Queenstown.
I went here yesterday and the bloody sim crashed when I moved, so hopefully that won't happen. We restarted it. It only took a couple of minutes, but terrain button's on, yep, so we probably see some terrain come up. This is a little island in Greece called Samos, and they do fly aircraft of this size, no bigger than this, in. And the reason it's challenging, I don't want to be in dusk, let's go back to, yeah, no, that's too hard, back to daytime. The reason it's challenging is the runway's there, and back behind us is there's terrain here. So they come in and they visually sort of fly on top of that terrain, but only a couple hundred feet above it.
Yep.
And it's a descending right-hand turn, but you don't have much of a extended final because you can't go more than a couple of miles away from the touchdown point, otherwise you fly into the hills.
Yep.
So it's really, you're like descending and turning,
Yep.
and then you roll the wings level when the runway needs to be literally right in front of you.
there,
You're
you've
about
got to
200
roll
feet
out
off the
on
ground. Yeah, you've got to roll out on it. Yep. There's actually a, okay, so here, so the main terrain is behind us, so we're going to be coming in and landing back on this runway.
Yep.
Technically, that terrain over there is in somebody else's airspace, and this is just an interesting side note, is that they'll shoot you down over here. If you go more than 4 miles, I'm going to put it on, this is how they do it in the real world, I'm going to put a circle on your navigation display there at 4 miles. Again, don't let them have a theory of this. If you fly outside 4 miles in that direction, they'll scramble jets.
Really?
Yeah. They're not real pleased with seeing you in their airspace at all. So, but the interesting thing is, it's literally, so you take off, and as soon as we get past 1,000 feet, we hang a right. Our current heading is 090. We're going to hang a right onto a heading of 190, which is pretty much, well, sort of 90 degrees, a bit more. Set 161 there for me. I just need to make sure it says Sam there and Sam there. I'm going to set 240 on my side. Now what we're going to do is use this flight director system which gives you guidance. You're still flying, but it tells you whether to climb, descend, go left or right.
Yep.
And I'm going to use it to take you about 10 miles out to sea, do a U-turn. We're going to be coming back in towards the terrain. I'm going to give you a left turn which crosses over from the water over the land and heads you right in towards the hills.
Yep.
As we're on that leg, that's when I'll turn off all that guidance, and for the final section, which is the right-hand descending turn to the runway, you're fully on your own. Yep. I mean, the other stuff is visual today as well, but it's actually giving you definite guidance. So, auto throttle back on. So hold that up. Yep. Speed goes to 140 again. Just checking we've got enough fuel, but we do. Auto brakes to RTO. And we need a little bit more power. Oh no, we're at full power. That's okay. I did it for Queenstown. So we've got 3 different power settings. Full power, a reduced setting 1 and a reduced setting 2. Normally they'll always try and reduce power whenever they can, but in Queenstown we needed it, and I need it here too. Okay, up to 40%.
Where are we?
No, we're in Greece. Yes. Samos. Try and remember it. Look it up on YouTube. Okay, Toga. You'll see some planes that do this approach. It's quite interesting. I don't want the flight directors on. Good. 80 knots. Here we go. 21 rotate. And this time, once you start climbing, you'll see the pink lines on your screen.
Yep.
Just keep pulling the black square until it settles right on that pink line. Try not to let it go above it though. Positive rate, gear up. As soon as we get through 400 feet, we're going to start the right-hand turn. So you're going to see that other pink line tell you to roll the wings to the right. So just follow it around with the black square. Level change, speed to 190, flaps to 1. Yep. And more luck.
Keep an eye out for dolphins, darling. I can't do that. Too busy.
They do put a fair bit of boats in the water around this part of the world, I've noticed. Quite a lot of shipping traffic. There will be a buzzer, or it should be. I've got this in right. That's the buzzer. We're only going to climb to 3,000 feet. Okay, so that pink line's going to drop any second, telling you to push the nose down and level off.
Yep.
And it's telling you to go to the left. Drop a little bit more on you in a second. Here it goes. Now just so you've kind of seen it. The whole point, of course, behind this is things like this. Right, fogged in. So if we're flying along and does it change? Why not?
Trying to see the screen flash.
Yeah, that's usual.
This is the VFR, is that what it's called?
This is VFR, Visual Flight Rules.
Yep.
Or VMC actually. VFR is what you get rated for. VMC is this condition, so Visual Meteorological Conditions.
Yep.
And IMC is when you need an IFR rating. Okay, it's going to take you to the left. The computer's trying to turn you left to follow that green line out. No idea why that weather didn't come in. That's very unusual. Doesn't matter. That nose is just a little high, so drop it down. And the guys that fly this for a living, they follow this thing. They're brilliant at it. This is what they do. They're one hand. They're just.
It's like they're half asleep.
They've got really good situational awareness. They know where they're planning to go.
Yep.
So they're kind of almost preempting this, but they keep that black box on that cross within a millimetre all the time. It's their real core skill set. Okay, we're now coming up to 7 miles away. We're going to go out to 8 miles and then turn back. Okay, nose up and touch. It's just trying to get you to the level of 3,000 feet, so that's why it's telling you to lift the nose a tiny bit. Take off checklist. Alright, we're going to start the slowdown, bring our speed back to 170. Yep. And we're now 8 miles. I'm going to give you a new course. As I do, it's going to tell you to fly right. Okay, so you follow your flight director around to the right. New course is 359. 359. Maps to 10. Nice. Let's just lean into the turn a tiny bit more. It's really just increasing the bank angle from 20 to about 25. Good, centre the wheel there, a little bit nose up. And in due course, you're going to be coming around the corner and seeing the direction we're going to fly back into the airport.
Up on that pink line.
Yes, it's actually going to plan to fly you back in on the green line, which is the course line. This is the course here back to the airport. And I'm going to start getting ready for a descent down to 1,900 feet.
We've basically got 2 computers, have we?
We've got the computer
you
here.
get one set while the other one's still running. Is that how it works, sort of? Or?
Yes. Yeah, gee, they're good questions. It's interesting. I've dialed the new altitude, but we haven't yet left the current one. So it's still got us in out hold.
Yes.
So I've set where I want to go to, and now I'm going to say start descending, and now it's going to have your pink line descending you to this next altitude. So you kind of get to load it in advance, and then head on down. Flaps to 15. Bring the speed back to 160. Good. So while we're heading in here for a minute, the runway that we took off from is pretty much right along here on the coast.
Okay.
Once we get ahead here, we're going to brake left and go across this way, and then we do this descending right-hand turn across here.
Yep.
Right. I want you to, when we get to 900 feet to this point, I want you to level off the, 1900 feet. The flight directors will guide you anyway. They'll tell you to lift the nose. And our next heading, so this is again me loading it in advance. I'm going to load up the next heading, which is going to be a left turn to 325. But it's not until I hit heading select that it'll become active. Out of quiet, so lift the nose, lift. Get it up. That's it. So it's actually trying to take you back up 100 feet now. So don't overclimb because it's only trying to take you up 100 feet.
Yep.
And then it'll tell you to go down again. So this is where...
And you got the auto acceleration, so that all kicks off.
It all kicks off.
Yeah.
It immediately realises you need more power now because you're maintaining altitude. Okay, we've got another about half a mile and then we're going to be turning left.
Is that the green? No?
Yeah, just as we get... This is 4 miles. I want to turn at about 4.5. So just before we get there, I'm actually reading the distance from here, 4.9.
Okay.
Okay, flaps to 30, slow down a bit more. Here it goes, 4.5. So I hit heading select. This new heading becomes active and it tells you to guide left, but notice we've dropped our nose again. As it happens, I'm going to take you down to 900 feet now anyway, so it's going to keep you
remembering all these things now. There's big things going up and down. And
Yep. So we're a bit high, so
Yep.
let the nose drop. We're descending to 900 feet. Flaps to 40, landing speed is 137.
You're doing all the work though. This is where
No,
it's
no,
hard.
no,
Doing this and doing that.
Well, you need two pilots though, that's why. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to level at 900, a little bit nose up. Spot the runway, so it's down there. That's the touchdown point. Right, good. And if you can see it, there's a white shed here.
Yep.
That's where visually you want to be at about 400 feet when that shed's underneath you, heading towards the runway. Okay, nose up.
That's in line with it, is it?
That's pretty much in line with it. You'll kind of come across on a bit of an angle,
Yep.
but they do use that in the real world as their line up. A little bit nose up still. Thrust is going to increase because we're just levelling here. Good, and don't climb, so watch your pitch box, it's all
Yep.
perfect. Hold there. Now, and as you turn, you're trying to almost keep the runway in view just in this top right corner. Okay, we've got, the next altitude is 400 feet, but I'm going to turn all this off now. You're going to do it manually. So right about now, you can start your descending right turn down to the runway here. And if you can, that sort of shed, we want to be going past that at about 400 feet, just on this side of it. Auto brakes are set, speed brake is armed. See those 4 white lights on the runway?
Yep.
That's sort of your PAPI this time. They'll go red and white, and you want to be touching down in that box. Great. That's 550 feet. There's the shed. So this descent rate's going to have you about 400 feet as you go past the shed. One of those, see those lights have gone red?
Yep.
So red and white, that's our perfect descent rate. And just keep banking around in front of it. And then imagine this is in the real world. This is exactly the approach they fly. Beautiful.
Hit bricks, wouldn't you?
One hand on the throttles, ready to press that button. Good, that's fine. So you just start to level the wings off. Keep your touchdown point there in sight. Press the button. Wrong button, hold on. That's it. Now just pull the throttles back. Good, and just let it settle. Tiniest little flare before touchdown. Not too big a flare, that's it. Let the wheels hit. And then nose down so we actually land. Reverses up. Nice landing, really good. Auto brakes are kicking in, so it's going to stop all by itself. Alright, 60 knots, close the reverses, give the throttles a nudge about an inch forward. That's where the speed brake would go down and they'd be ready to start taxiing off, but we're not going to do that. Now, tell me how you're travelling. We can get one more in.
Yep.
You up for that?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Good. Alright, I'm going to do, come on, well that's really, really good. And you shouldn't underestimate how actually difficult that is. In terms of when we're doing that banked right turn, we're only 200 feet above the ground,
Yep.
and that is the real world approach. Because you had red and white lights, at one stage we got 4 red, So we were probably
Bit
50
low.
feet low,
Yep.
but not by much. If that happens in the real world, the pilot monitoring calls that they're low, the pilot flying goes correcting, and he lifts the nose a bit. It's like, it's not unusual for that to happen.
Yep.
It's not great, but it happens quite frequently where they'll say, I'm high or low on the PAPI.
Yep.
They normally only get one light out. It's either one dot or one colour too low or one colour too high, but it's quite common for them to correct. Now, we're going to do one more that's, again, a bit on the challenging side, but it's some pretty good terrain again. I don't know whether it'll be day or night when we get there. Well, there's your terrain map. Zoom that out.
Yeah.
Zoom out to 10.
This one?
No, next one down. The zoom one's easy if you just
Oh,
look
yeah.
for all the big numbers. It tells you the map numbers.
So it's on.
The next one, other way. Yep, so that's about the right zoom. That kind of gives you an idea that we're in a valley with mountains on both sides.
Yeah, okay.
So think Queenstown again, but the reason this one is an interesting approach, and again they do it in a 737, is not because of the mountains. They fly in and out of mountains quite a lot, but when they're coming down this valley, they either land straight ahead onto that runway that we're on here, or they have to come past the runway and do a U-turn to go back and land, and that's the one that's the more challenging approach,
Yep.
which is the one that we're going to. Ah, there's my fog that I was
There's
after.
your fog.
I wonder why that didn't come up. That's really weird. But we don't want it now.
You know, I remember some of the challenges on that the old flight simulator. You had no visual of the runway at all until you were on it.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the reason. Now it's not going back. This is all getting rather interesting. Unpause. Weather. Yeah. Well, I do this every day. It's almost unheard of for it not to work. But I would feel a bit nervous about trying to do this approach in this condition. I think it would end quite badly. Gotta be honest. Just gonna have a reload on the runway because that kind of cleared it before, and see if that's clear it again.
So, you built all this yourself?
No, we're what I'd call an assembler, I guess, in terms of. Holy crap! You buy it. You can go to companies and buy the whole thing, but we ended up. I initially bought this dashboard with this mode control panel, so this turned up as one pre-built unit from a company in Canada, and then I bought this entire overhead from somewhere, the whole pedestal from somewhere else, the throttle from somewhere, the flight controls from somewhere else, the pedals from somewhere else, and the seat. So, and the shell that we're sitting in came from the same people I bought the original dashboard from. So there's like 7 or 8 key suppliers that over about 18-month period I kind of built it up as we went.
I didn't even know you were here. How long have you been in Hobart?
We've been in Hobart. We're in Collins Street, so we've been running the sim here probably for about 3 years, 3.5 years. We've been in this location for about almost coming up to 2. I want to get rid of this. This is rubbish. But I don't know. I've got another instructor station. Let me try that one. Condition. Current weather. Weather themes. Clear skies. There you go. Who knows what's going on with that? But whatever gets the job done, I think, will be the case. Now, so when we take off, we just head off. What we're actually going to do is once we're airborne, we'll head a bit left over towards these peaks up here. Not above them, but just in this sort of general space.
Yep.
We do a U-turn, we come back down the valley, but as we're heading towards the runway, we brake left, and we're in a lower sort of basin here. There's a set of elevated hills that are about 500 feet above us here. We fly up on top of that ridge, about 2 miles past the airport, and then you do your full 180 degree turn to come back to this runway. But what happens is, because you're in the low section and you're flying up here, as you turn back, you get quite close to this ridge line. You get within a couple of 100 feet, and then as you cross it, you kind of get this extra airspace below you. The main trick is when you're flying on that flat section down past the airport, you must be trimmed, because if you're holding the column back like this, when you go to make the steep turn, you won't have enough left to hold the nose up. So you need to make sure it's pretty well trimmed when we're flying along the flat section. Okay, we will use the flight directors initially, but we'll turn them off later. Yep, auto throttle on. This time we're about 2,000 feet above the ground. and we're going to climb to about 7, so set 7,000 on this window here. Now I did tell you I was going to say something about after we landed. What was one of the questions?
No stressing about it.
Can't remember. No, it doesn't matter. It was probably something you'll ask again when we're in this next phase of flight, but it doesn't matter. Okay, throttle's up to 40%.
Even that's something that 40% of power is all you need to take off. I mean,
Well, no, that's all you need to get started. So we're at 40.
Oh, yeah.
All we're doing here is we've just stabilised the engines to make sure they're in good condition. Now you hit toga, and that's when they actually advance
that's
to
right,
99%.
yeah.
Recycle flaps, there we go. But that gives them a chance to look for any abnormal indications of the engines.
Yep.
Okay, 80 knots, cross check. V1, rotate. So once the nose is up, just looking at your flight director. I should have given you a better heading than that. Here it goes, heading select. Positive rate, gear up. Now I'm going to turn off one of the pink lines straight away, so you've only got the one controlling your pitch. I'm going to increase our speed to about 190 knots, and you can start visually heading out to the left to get closer to the top of that mountain peak. Alright, you're a bit above your pink line while that's going on, so just drop the nose, and you can see what's happening is our speed's declining, and that's why it's telling us to bring the nose down a touch. And there we go, the speed starts to increase.
Whereabouts was this again?
This is Austria, Innsbruck it's called. And again, if you remember where we went, or it's on the videotape I'll send you, go to YouTube and search for Innsbruck, and you'll see some really interesting landings where they come down this valley and do this U-turn we're going to do. Right. Alright, get a bit closer, you can just sneak to the left. Okay, I'm going to slow down your climb rate to about 1,500 feet a minute, so your pink line will drop down your screen, telling it to not climb quite as steep. And that buzzer is the one that says you're within 1,000 feet of your target altitude, so it's basically a wake-up call. So in a minute you're going to need to start flying again,
Yeah.
and it does the same thing on the way down. Beautiful. So we're going to fly straight ahead until we get a bit close and then turn away. You do have a display here, just to give you an idea. This is what they call a vertical display, which gives you an idea of terrain to where you're flying straight ahead.
So
Because we're heading that way, it's not quite going to arrive. If you were to turn left a bit, which I don't recommend, the peak will suddenly jump up in front of you.
Yep.
Okay, let's start a turn to the right, and during this turn we're going to start descending to 4,200 feet. So you'll see the pink line starts to go down. It's only a gradual descent, so it won't be a very steep one. And as far as your bank goes, just sort of turn and follow the river. That'll take us back towards the airport.
Yep.
Bring the speed back to 170 in the turn. Perfect, and that's a 25-degree bank, which is nice. One of the things I like about these full-size sims is I've got the runway, I can see it already, and you won't have a chance. Because you've got such a... And that's what happens in the real world. I can see out this window, but you'd have to literally put your head over here to be able to see what I can see. Now, but you will get it. You got the... off schedule descent, I reckon. No, we've lost a generator. Okay, I'll clear that. We don't want to play with that. But it was well picked up. And then we'll just put the generator back on. Okay.
Flying down this valley again?
No, so can you see the runway down there?
Yep.
This is this elevated plateau up here that we want to fly on.
Yep.
So I want you to head to about this corner, and we're going to level off on this plateau. We're going to be at 4,200 feet, flying with your wing as close to these trees as you can get. And this is how they do it in the real world. They literally, it's visual.
Yep.
They put themselves right over here on the edge, and as they come down here, they keep sneaking more and more to the left to give them room to do the U-turn without crashing over on this side.
Yep.
Alright, so you're going to get a buzzer in a minute because we're within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. Right there, so that's like, you've got 900 feet left to be ready to level off. The pink line will come up the screen telling you to lift the nose.
Yep.
Gear goes down, bring the speed back to 155. Auto brakes are set for landing. And once you've sort of got yourself nicely over near these trees, you can sort of see a V down that end of the hills. You want to fly at that V, and once we're travelling across here, we'll descend another 300 feet down to 3,900. And that'll be the altitude we hold until we turn to do the U-turn. Flaps to 30.
That's the other thing I try to tell Tabitha when we're coming in. You get all the same sort of noises, and I keep saying to her, they're actually trying to slow the plane down. It takes a bit.
Yeah, particularly Boeing. They say they've got a saying, which is that it's very hard to go down and slow down at the same time. Whenever you're descending, it takes quite a lot to get the speed out. Okay, we're a little bit low, so that's why your flight director's telling you just to hold the nose up.
Yep.
Start putting a bit of trim in even now, so it's wanting to stay at this altitude. Good. And then we're going to go to our final flap setting. The reason we do flaps 40 here is we want to be flying as slow as we possibly can, so the radius of our turn is as tight as it can be.
Yep.
So 137 is the slowest we can go in this current weight configuration. Now you're already looking pretty good, so I'm going to give you the next 300 feet, so we can actually go down to 3,900, just a gradual drop along the way. See how when you get closer, see how much closer this stuff here looks than it did on the ground?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you feel like it's
You're
kind
in
of
the air,
closing in on you.
Yeah.
The reason you can't go far past the airport is because of this dirty great big thing here. You've got to fly at it and then turn away from it. Okay, that's 3940, so nose up, follow your pink line, out hold, good, and then we'll stay here, nice and close to the trees, heading for the V, don't do the descent, and just use any trim you need at this point so that you're not having to hold the column back.
Not too bad.
Okay, so just make a bit of the right turn. Well, do what you like, you've got to get close, so
Yep.
it's how confident you feel. Perfect. So we're currently 1,000 feet above the terrain immediately below us. And as you come along here, you you just keep sneaking a little bit left as you come along, just giving yourself as much room as you reasonably can from that side.
Yep.
Still maintaining that 3,900 feet, which is good. Now, and the turn to the right, it'll be a 30-degree bank initially. It'll want to drop its nose, which is fine, but we don't want it going past 1,000 feet a minute. So you want to hold enough back pressure to keep it in 1,000 feet a minute descent initially. Then as soon as you're nicely in the bank, you'll be able to start looking at the window to try and maintain visual clearance with the ground.
Those people in that house must get pissed off.
Well, yeah, it's not a huge airport for traffic, but you get a bit of regular traffic coming in. Tiny bit of nose up. Looking great. There's a big ravine that runs through here, and that's about what we turn and cross. So about now you turn into it. So 30-degree bank to the right. Watch your pitch falling on you as you do this. I'll turn off the pink lines, we don't use them now. It's all about manual flying. Right, 30 degrees centre of the wheel. So don't keep the bank, that's it. And then watch that pitch, let it go towards 1,000. So nose down a touch. And you start to see this ridge line out here. This is what you visually, can you see where I'm looking? You're trying to kind of get quite close, within a couple hundred feet of that, and then we drop into the lower basin. And you're looking at this sort of part of the windows for the runway. As soon as you can spot it, there it is, I've got it, have you got it?
Yep.
Okay, nose down a bit because there's 4 whites, so that means we're a touch higher. Here we come, we're just crossing the ridge. Looking great. Still got 4 whites, so just let the nose drop a tiny bit more, just a millimetre or two. As soon as you get one of them go red, you'll be able to start to bring the nose back up. See how close you get to that thing.
Yeah.
That's the real challenge of the approach. Righto, one will go red any second. Says confidently. It doesn't matter, you can still see where your touchdown point is right there.
Yep.
One hand on the throttles. That's fine, it's just because our descent's a bit steep, but it's all within margin. Okay, press the button. Close the throttles and don't overflare, just let it keep. That's perfect, that's going to hit right on the touchdown zone. As soon as the wheels hit, column goes forward smoothly, reverses come on. Yep, magic, you're steering with your feet. Actually take your hand off this, it almost confuses you, it almost makes you want to use it like a steering wheel.
Yep. Brakes and tap, this is what they do now. They hit the brakes, which is going to help us to stop. Advance those throttles about an inch. Oh, the speed brake, I didn't know it, right. And then you can just turn right using the tiller on the wall. Oh yeah.
Just to follow the taxiway round and in towards the terminal. Bit of thrust.
Yeah, I didn't know about the handle.
Yeah. Yeah, and Airbus is the same. They have a tiller. It looks slightly different, but it's still a separate device on the wall.
Yep.
That's totally separate from the main control.
I suppose so you can't accidentally have it the wrong way when you're landing or something.
It's mainly so that on the runways, because that's so aggressive, you don't want to be doing big wheel turns on the runway. So it's just so that's a separate function. Yep. Now, I know the one thing I was going to say to you, which you asked at the beginning, was about flaring. And one of the tricks with these kind of aircraft is when you fly towards the runway, your nose is already up in the air. So even on a normal approach, your nose is 2 to 2.5 degrees up.
Yep.
So the reason you don't flare, because we know at 5 degrees, that actually has you flying level. Yep. So you don't have to flare the tiniest bit and you've gone back into flight. So they're actually descending like that, and at about 20 feet off the ground, they just give the nose a little tweak, which slows the descent rate, and then they let it go again. So there's no actually held flare. You don't hold it off the ground.
Yeah.
You come in like that, you just lift it, and then drop it again, so you just don't hit quite as hard. But there's no flare at all. Alright,
Cool.
I'm actually finished. I'll just show you what it looks like cold and dark. So this is where it's also pretty good as a sim. This one models it quite nicely. The device shuts stuff down, which this would be the normal shutdown flow. Here, that goes off, off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and last two, that one. And you end up with what we call a dark aircraft. So that's what it would look like if you picked it up at 6 AM in the morning or 5 AM for your flight out of Hobart.
Yep.
And you go into a cold and dark
Which I'm
aircraft.
on tomorrow.
Right, where are you going?
Beijing.
With whom? Who are you flying out with?
Virgin.
So this aircraft. If you
Yep.
walk, look through the door,
Yep.
throttles, flaps, speed brake, the pedestal here, 3 columns. This will be exactly what you're going to see.
Yep.
You'll even, if you actually look closely, you'll see the heading here will either say 120 or 300, depending on
the
which
weather.
runway they're in.
Yep.
But from here, if you know how to start this, then you can start the real aircraft. Like, there's no keys, as long as there's fuel in the tanks and they let you into the cockpit.
That's probably the hardest bit.